Last time on D&D featuring Calliope Laurelleaf, the Halfling Bard, Ellie Jobel, the Gnome Ranger Rogue, Phelan, the High Elf Cleric, Talarin, the Wood Elf Ranger, Trogdor, the Dragonborn Barbarian, Torpo, the Hill Dwarf Wizard, and Alaric Lysane, the Human Fighter.
It's been a while. Almost a full year. October 2022 is when I did the Arrival Session 15. With this game, we ended up only going until, I believe it was Session 19. Yeah, Session 19 would be the last one for this game because roughly right about that point when we were playing this, COVID had hit and a couple of the players were considered urgent, so they didn't have the free time that they normally had on the weekend. So this game for this session is about to come to a close or be put on hold. I think we actually played until Session 18, and then sometime a year or so after, we did one quick session to try to get everyone together, but a few of the players couldn't make it. So this game just kind of has been on hold since then. I still play with a number of the players. For example, Anita, she actually DMs a few games that I play in. And then Jessica, who is in this game, she's pretty much in all of the games that I DM for now. So that said, if you need a recap, go back to Session 15, or I can just tell you that essentially the party had gone into Redstone, which is a small town that has this mountain, and adapted its name from these caverns that have these red pulsating stones. And the story behind Redstone is essentially that an angel fell onto this mountain after an epic battle in the heavens, and these red stones are actually the blood of this angel that dripped down through the mountain. Now there is a story around Redstone where there is an old woman who would appear and take the children, and this had just recently happened not too long ago. And in Session 15 the party ends up going in after them and discovering them, fighting some hags, and basically making their way out. After the party returns the children to their parents, they see the caravan is ready to leave. Everyone is paid out for this leg of the journey, and the caravan grows from just 4 wagons to 12. Alaric, through all of this, had found divine hope and faith and dipped into becoming one level of a paladin. One of the caravans, one with an assortment of elaborate decorations belonging to a wealthy human by the name of Cortel Barrowspear, who is a politician hoping to make connections over in the Broken Lands. He's heard about all these relics and ancient things being found there, so he's hoping to not only make connections, but also help fund his campaign of, world domination in the political world. His brown eyes and brown hair put him in his early 30s, possibly. He makes it very clear that he does not trust the party. He's heard an assortment of things, such as they're potentially the ones that are responsible for accidentally releasing a fallen angel that went to the west, essentially wreaking havoc as this fallen angel continued west, including supposedly wreaking some havoc in the Broken Lands. And he believes this jeopardizes his chances of making those connections if he arrives in the same caravan as the party that's responsible for all of this. He also questions why they ride with a red dragonborn, which is Trogdor, as metallic dragons, especially the red dragons, are known to be evil. He's also heard that the cleric Phelan has equipped an ancient gauntlet of terrible and evil power, and, claims that she can't be freed of it. This knowledge comes from his deep pockets and connections throughout the eastern side of the Ivory Coast. So he's definitely got information on the party, and he's not really trusting them. And due to his lack of trust, gathers his own party around him, and he's employed a number of people for protection. So he's employed a female half-orc by the name of Brakara Durastorm. There's a female Asmir paladin by the name of Halen Farstar. There's a female elf druid by the name of Elena Fallmoon. There's a male halfling rogue, or a quote-unquote scout, by the name of Bren Barrelforge. There's also a male half-elf monk by the name of Norn Blackmane, and the brother, who happens to be a half-elf ranger that is also male, by the name of Dorn Blackmane. And there is also a warlock tiefling there, a male, named Loren Tornsel. So these are the people that basically he has hired to stay around his wagon. His wagon has a number of gold and things that he wants to trade with the people in the Broken Lands. So he has this own party of people to basically keep an eye on his wagon and keep an eye on the party. The caravan essentially comes to a stop at the base of Longstone Mountain Range, where the many caravans often stop before heading up this treacherous trek through the Longstone Mountains. The site is essentially a common campground for caravans. It's right at the base where the trail starts heading up, so that they can go up the trail in the morning, where the visibility is much better, and ideally if the weather is also in a better place. Traveling up through the mountain during the dark is often very perilous because the higher you go, the wind and the snow becomes a big factor in terms of danger towards those on a caravan, especially a very large caravan, where if something happens towards the front of the caravan that falls backwards, it is like a domino effect, hitting everything on the way down. While at the campsite, Talaran goes in search for food and scouts for the surrounding area for danger. This was essentially my way of writing out Talaran for this episode because he was not here for this session, so making him basically scout and search for food and danger keeps him out of this session's game, so I don't have to worry about why isn't he doing anything. The campsite hosts a number of different games, including pit fighting and gambling, and Trogdor decides to go into the ring against Vraka Durastorm. Both Calliope and Phelan use their magic to try to enhance his chances. He manages to win 2 of the 3 rounds. During the pit fighting, Ellie notices that Paladin, Halen Farstar, seem to be guarding Cortel's cart. She disguises herself as a drunken dwarf and wanders near the wagon to try to peek inside, but is caught by Halen, who pushes her away. The party then decides to rest around the campfire when they observe a larger size, as in girth, human pulling a sleigh down the mountain pass at night. The sleigh seems to be pulled by a reindeer. Strangely enough, no one else in the caravan seems to react to this unusual sight of this man, who is quite burly, with human frosty white hair and a beard, and he smiles as if he knows them and approaches the party. He sits comfortably next to them, his sleigh behind him and his reindeer looking around. He explains that brigands have robbed him of his bag of holding, which contains endless amounts of gifts for children, and his ruby of levitation that he needs for his reindeer to be able to fly. You can already guess who he's supposed to be. This game is taking place, if you have not pieced it together, near the tail end of December, and this is my version of Santa Claus. His name is Nicholas, which is spelled Nikalos. The main brigand who is up there is a man that used to be a human, but he goes by the name of Grinch, G-A''Rich, so you can see where this is all going. He explains that Grinch was a hardworking human who came to live in the Ivory Coast in hopes of making something of a name of himself. But he was always nothing more than a servant to everyone he came to work with, and grew extremely envious and jealous. So much so he began to despise people and would venomously insult them at every chance. Clerics banished him and cursed him, preventing him from returning to the Ivory Vale. He went into hiding, searching for a way to extract his revenge. The mysterious figure asks the party to subdue, not kill, Grinch, and then show him the magical mirror they've been handed by him. This will keep him subdued by seeing the truth of what he has become. The party agrees to help this mysterious figure and begins to make their way up the mountain. About 30 feet up the trail, the party realizes that someone is moving behind them and trailing them, and sees Cortel's 7 guards watching them at the very base of the mountain, wondering what they're doing. Going up the trail a little more, the party senses something and looks behind them and now notices that there's only 6 members of Cortel's guards watching them. Peering through the fog that has begun to settle in for the night over the mountains, they're able to determine that the halfling rogue has gone missing, and surmise that he's probably stealthing behind them somewhere. Ellie and Calliope decide to leave the halfling a message in Thieves' Cant that reads, "I know you're behind us. If you make it up to the top without me spotting you, I owe you a drink." The party makes their way up to the top of the path again, looking out for a specific cave that the mysterious figure had mentioned. They hear this thunderous approach of a large figure, and Phelan quickly casts Pass Without a Trace to quietly get past the Etten, who continues up the path. It's further up where Trogdor and Phelan hear creatures speaking in Draconic. They seem to be arguing about having gone the wrong way. Trogdor continues ahead while the others wait and sees 2 batches of kobolds, 8 in total. 2 that seem to have wooden cages on their backs, 6 others who seem to have functioning wings of some kind. Trogdor, a red dragonborn, slams his heavy axe into the ground and demands to know what the kobolds are doing. They explain that they're looking for the castle that crashed somewhere in the mountain range, and that they need to get the treasure back to the Cult of the Dragons to raise the goddess Tiamat. Trogdor tells them that he has another mission for them and that he was sent by the Cult of the Dragons. The kobolds drop to their knees, wholeheartedly agree, because he rolled a natural 20 on his persuasion, to assist Trogdor and his companions, whom he tells the kobolds are also members of the Cult of the Dragon. He learns that the 2 with the cages on their backs are inventors, while the other 6 are sorcerers. Trogdor manages to convince one of the sorcerers, sorcerer number 6, by the name of Bajark, to scout ahead. Bjark does so, and upon stepping inside the cave, a few minutes later lets out a scream that is cut suddenly very, very short. Ellie scouts ahead and sees 2 red guard drakes. These are basically what would be the equivalent of like a dragon guard dog. One of which finishes consuming Bjark, who probably assumed these guard drakes might be friendly to him because they share their draconic heritage. Ellie stealths back to report what she saw and sends Trogdor forward to demand that the guard drakes stand down for him and his companions. Again, he rolls a natural 20 on his persuasion or deception. The party enters and moves past the guard drakes, where further down the hall, they're surprised to see that the walls come alive as the Galeb Dur reveal themselves. These are people made of stone. They warn them that Grinch has many guards down below and would like the party to remove them and Grinch because he taints their land. The party asks about Grinch, and the Galeb Dur tell him that the Grinch also has a violet dragon with him. The party is stunned, unsure what to make of a violet dragon. The party moves a little ahead with Ellie checking for traps. Phelan continues to concentrate on Pass Without a Trace, having roughly 30 more minutes of it, but Trogdor and Ellie have both stepped out of range. As the party moves on, they hear sounds. No one is able to distinguish what language is being spoke. Trogdor turns towards a kobold inventor number 2, his name is Lafar, and asks if he can make an invention to understand languages. The party looks around as Lafar looks through his items and constructs something and hands it to Trogdor proudly. Trogdor, in turn, hands it to Ellie. Ellie puts it over her ear, and the device clamps down on her ear, causing 4 points of damage, and Ellie lets out a scream in pain. This alerts the creatures below, which the party has now determined is hobgoblins, by the words that Ellie is now able to understand. So the invention worked, however it did cause her pain and she failed her con save to not cry out. Trogdor and Ellie hide while Phelan guides the others, continuing to use Pass Without a Trace to sneak through the dark cavern. They see 8 hobgoblin archers lined against the wall, waiting for someone to walk through, and one who appears to be a mage. Trogdor and Ellie, in the meantime, hear the same thunderous sound they heard before, marking the Ettin's return. Ellie tries to throw a trap down for the Ettin, but the Ettin's perception, due to its multiple heads, easily spots Ellie, and now a fight between Ellie, Trogdor, and the Ettin begins. Ellie manages to get the first attack and does a considerable amount of damage before sprinting away. The Ettin, seeing the threat of Trogdor, manages to hit him with his axe, but not his Morningstar, doing some damage. The hobgoblins, hearing the Ettin engaged in battle, assume he's fighting, so they make their way over and they launch a volley of arrows, with only 2 hitting Trogdor, much to his surprise. The rest of the party behind the hobgoblins now launches their attack as the kobolds listen to Trogdor's commands. Kunta, who is one of the inventors, throws down a bunch of mechanical centipedes on the Ettin, while Lafar tosses some alchemist fire down at the hobgoblins. Turpo unleashes a fireball, finishing off all the hobgoblins, while Calliope rushes up and attacks the Ettin. Alaric is behind her, attacking the Ettin as well, and together they bring the massive beast down. Once past the burning decay of the hobgoblins, Trogdor convinces Kunta, the kobold inventor, to scout ahead. He comes back and reports it's just Grinch inside, and that he is talking to himself while holding a red gem. In the back, there is actually a violet dragon being held in a cage. Ellie scouts inside and confirms, but she sees the violet dragon is actually a small dragon, no bigger than a foot, and Grinch is using it to squeeze its euphoria breath to unlock his mind and try to figure out the magic words to unlock the power of the gem. Calliope casts a spell to subdue him, and due to his recent ingestion of fairy fire euphoria, he rolls at a disadvantage and gets a natural 1, and quickly succumbs to fits of laughter. Ellie and Calliope quickly run in, tie him up, and Ellie reveals the mirror to Grinch, who stops in his tracks, seeing the truth of what he's become. He sees the evil that he's done, the evil that he's associated with, and his drug-induced state of being addicted to the fairy dragon's euphoria breath. Turpo then uses Mage Hand to hold the mirror as they begin to escort Grinch. However, the guard drakes, seeing their master tied up, react poorly. The party successfully escorts Grinch to the bottom, where Ellie spots a note where she had left hers in Thieves' Cant that reads, "You owe me a drink." Ellie and Calliope laugh. They reach the bottom and immediately draw everyone's attention because with them are 7 kobolds. This only feeds Cortel's suspicion about the party. The party convinces some of the merchants that they had rescued them from the Cult of the Dragons. Ellie buys a drink and hands it over to Brent Barrelforge, who happily takes the drink with a clink of the mug, smiling at her. They bring Grinch to the mysterious figure who is sitting next to their camp, and he opens the bag of holding, ensures that all the gifts are there. He places a red ruby sphere of levitation on his first reindeer's nose and takes off into the dark night sky. The party realizes they got no reward when suddenly their pouches grow heavier, and the party realizes that the mysterious figure has awarded each of them 1,000 gold, and his laughter echoes throughout the night. Again, this was a Christmas episode because this was during the tail end of December, and just for fun, I had named all of the inventors, all of the kobolds. So Kunta, who was the inventor, was male. Lafar was an inventor who was male. Botan was a sorcerer who is female. Kella is a sorcerer who is female. Etor was a sorcerer who is male. Grissy is a sorcerer who is female. And Lismar is a sorcerer who is male. So that wrapped up session 16 of The Arrival.